Guess the decade. Red vinyl booths, a low amber lamp over the table, a metal bucket of in-shell peanuts, and the dry crackle under your loafers as shells crush into the floorboards. That mess is a clue. Now watch the decade give itself away. Act 1. Setup. The habit is older than the chains people picture. In late 19th century saloons and early 20th century roadhouses, peanuts are cheap, filling, and easy to serve from open bins. And drop the shells where they stand. Sweeping waits until closing. By the 1930s and 1940s, roadside taverns and beer halls across the United States use free peanuts the way bars use pretzels later. Salt makes people thirsty. Shells on the floor signal a rough, casual room. Nobody mistakes it for the dining car at the Palmer House. The bigger clue arrives after World War II, when highways spread and family dining changes shape. Supper clubs and Western-themed restaurants multiply near suburbs and interstates. Television sells frontier swagger. Chain restaurants need instant atmosphere, and atmosphere has to register before the menu opens. Here's the quiet problem the shell solves. A steakhouse wants to feel generous without giving away expensive food. A bucket of peanuts costs little, keeps kids busy, and buys patience while a table waits for a sirloin. Busy hands mean fewer complaints from hungry families. It solves another problem too. Middle-class restaurants in the 1960s and 1970s want to look relaxed, not fussy. White linen says anniversary dinner. Peanut shells say you can laugh loudly, order a beer, and let your children make a little noise. Tuck that clue away. Act 2. Rise. Chains begin codifying these signals. Victoria Station starts in San Francisco in 1969 inside old railway cars and fills them with antiques, dark wood, and theatrical clutter. Other operators notice that themed casual dining makes ordinary meals feel like an outing. Then comes Steak and Ale, founded by Norman Brinker in Dallas in 1966. The chain pushes affordable steak in a deliberately informal setting. It does not invent the shell floor on its own, but it helps normalize the broader formula. Cheap appetizer, masculine decor, permission to relax. By the 1970s, independent steakhouses and roadhouses lean hard into the look. Brass rails, wagon wheel decor, taxidermy, country music, sawdust in some regions, peanut shells in others. The shell carries a message before a server speaks. This place is hearty. This place is busy. This place is fun. One reason the gimmick spreads is simple theater. You hear it. The floor crackles. You smell salt and roasted peanuts before the steaks arrive. Children test the rule by dropping a shell and waiting to see if an adult objects. When nobody objects, the room announces its own looseness. Trade magazines in the 1970s and 1980s keep returning to themed casual dining because margins are tight and differentiation matters. And visible bustle create value without changing the cut of beef. A shell-covered floor reads as abundance, even when the food cost stays controlled. By the 1980s, casual dining is one of the biggest stories in American restaurants. TGI Fridays, Bennigan's, Chili's, and dozens of regional chains train customers to expect a whole environment, not just a plate. The steakhouse branch of that boom keeps the peanut ritual alive because it photographs well and feels participatory. Texas Roadhouse opens its first location in Clarksville, Indiana in 1993, founded by W. Kent Taylor. The chain becomes the best-known late example. For years, many locations hand out free peanuts and encourage shells on the floor. By then, the practice already carries decades of Roadhouse baggage. Act 3. Fall or twist. Here is the twist. Peanut shells on the floor are never simply carefree nonsense. They are a labor decision, a branding cue, and a thirst strategy inherited from bars. The shell says rustic abundance, but somebody still has to sweep every inch after closing. Health departments do not ban peanut shells as a universal rule, but local sanitation expectations, slip hazards, pest control, and accessibility concerns make the practice harder to justify over time. Add stricter corporate risk management, and the old Roadhouse charm starts reading like paperwork. Then, allergies enter the room with new force. Public awareness of peanut allergy rises sharply in the 1990s and 2000s, as schools, airlines, and restaurants revisit exposure. A floor dusted with peanut debris stops feeling neutral. Families who once read welcome now read warning. Chains adapt unevenly. Some restaurants keep the peanut bucket but stop encouraging shells underfoot. Some remove open peanuts entirely. Texas Roadhouse, after years of association with the ritual, scales back in many locations, especially during the COVID-19 period when shared food bins become an obvious problem. What survives is the memory of the sound. A lot of adults can still place the exact crunch, mixed with air conditioning, ice clinking in tumblers, and a country song bleeding for the speaker above the hostess stand. The shelf floor lingers in the body longer than in the marketplace. You can still find traces online, in old postcards, local TV ads, and reviews that treat the mess as either charm or nuisance. Former servers remember sweeping mountains of shells. Former kids remember being thrilled that a restaurant allowed a rule normally reserved for ballparks. That split is the real afterlife. One person recalls permission. Another recalls cleanup. One customer thinks of birthday dinners under dim brass lamps. Another thinks of stained cuffs and slippery entrances on rainy nights. The same shell carries hospitality and hassle at once. Look farther back, and the detail points toward an older American appetite for staged roughness. Restaurants often borrow working-class or frontier signals, then package them safely for middle-class leisure. Railroad cars become dining rooms. Saloon snacks become family branding. Disorder gets managed, then sold. That is why the decade gives itself away so quickly. A peanut shell floor fits best in the late 20th century age of themed casual dining, when chains compete on atmosphere and families buy an experience along with dinner. The shell is tiny. The script around it is huge. If the room in your memory has red Naugahyde booths, fake wagon wheels, and a hostess stand built from dark stained wood, you are probably somewhere between the 1970s and the 1990s. The floor is doing period work. It dates the room almost as clearly as the menu typography. Even the cleanup tools tell on the era. Broom, dustpan, bus tub. Industrial vacuum in back. Nothing glamorous. The restaurant asks workers to maintain the illusion of spontaneous mess with nightly precision. That's where it gets weird. Chaos becomes a scheduled closing duty. Act 3 Archivist's Note. A peanut shell floor tells you how American restaurants once sold comfort. They offered a managed kind of rebellion. Break this small rule. Be messy here. We already planned for it. For a while, that promise felt warm, affordable, and unmistakably modern. Now the shell reads differently. It can suggest allergy risk, extra labor, and decor trying hard to prove authenticity. Still, the clue remains on contact. One step, one dry crunch, and an entire restaurant decade slides back into focus. Lock that memory in the vault, and I'll see you in the next case. What year did you first see this?